Global iTech Podcast. Global iTech Podcast.
All right, welcome to the second episode of the Smart Global iTech podcast. My name is Joshua Juna. I'm your host. I also serve as the Regional Infrastructure and Security Manager for Smart Applications. My co-host, Anne, will introduce herself. Anne, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Joshua, for bringing us together to discuss matters privacy and data protection. My name is Anne Mutheu, and I am an advocate by profession. I specialize in legal compliance and data privacy.
Okay, thank you very much. And so for this episode, we are going to focus largely on matters privacy, and we're going to focus on privacy for an individual. So to get started, Anne, help us define what is privacy and what does it mean to an individual.
Thank you, Joshua. You're making me do the impossible.
Yes.
Because actually, in the world, there's no one who has come up with a single concise definition of the word privacy.
Yes.
It means different things in different contexts.
Okay.
So if you're in your bathroom and you shut the door,
Yes.
it just connotes that you need to be in some private space.
Yes.
If you're talking to your spouse and you don't want others to hear,
Yes.
you probably will lock your bedroom door.
Yes.
And in that context, that is privacy,
Okay.
isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
If you are talking to your doctor,
Yes.
you don't want the other patients to hear what
Yes.
is happening, or your doctor will always try to close the curtain,
Yes.
connoting privacy. So the whole idea is there are some things that are personal and private to you, like
Yes.
the world should not know about them.
Okay.
And then there are those that are common sense and generally known to the world.
Yes.
You don't have a big feeling about them. For example, giving your ID number.
Yeah.
Many times, if you're asked even by the security guards at the gates, you'll give. It's
Yeah.
not a big issue to you.
Yeah.
But if they ask you your child's name,
Yes.
there's a connotation around it, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's very true.
So the whole idea of privacy is what we call a right to be let alone.
Okay.
A delineation between the public sphere and
Yes.
the private sphere.
Private sphere.
That's how I would look at it. Yeah. But above that, it's actually a human right.
Okay.
So the UN Declaration of Human Rights actually lists the right to privacy as a right entitled to each individual. And
Yes.
it appears in multiple constitutions in the world, including ours here in Kenya,
Yes.
that every person in Kenya has a right to
Privacy.
So if you ask me, I would say it is just a right to have matters or your affairs private and not available to everyone in the public.
In short, the right to be left alone.
Yes.
Okay. So what happens most times is that we have another term that is used together with privacy, and that is data protection.
Yeah.
What is data protection, and how does it relate to privacy?
And even that, there's a struggle. There's
Okay.
a struggle in trying to come up with a definition. But
Yes.
the trend we are seeing and the common thread around that definition is that data protection is a child, so to speak,
Okay.
of privacy.
Of privacy.
So privacy is the parent.
Yeah.
It's the overarching concept is things are being kept to limited knowledge or limited disclosure.
Yes.
But now when you talk about data privacy, it really is what exactly is the content of the privacy, and there it's information.
Yes.
So when we talk about data protection, we are saying people have a right to have information about them being respected and held to according to their right to privacy. So it's a child, so to speak.
Okay.
But the root of everything comes from the right to privacy.
Okay. Just so that I've understood the two definitions, let me use an analogy of a home, like you had used before. So if we are to compare a window that prevents a thief from coming into the house and a curtain, so which implementation serves as privacy? Which one serves as protection? Because the window without the curtain,
Yes.
I mean, it will keep the thief out.
Yes.
but it will not stop the person from seeing you.
Yes.
Okay, but also the curtain without a window
Yes.
will stop someone from seeing you, but not stop them from. So in that connotation, what is private? What is privacy? So if I've done a window to my house,
Yeah.
am I doing that? Am I doing data protection? Am I doing privacy? If I've done a curtain and a window,
Yeah.
what am I exactly achieving?
So I like that you're just facing the struggle that
Yes.
I'm explaining.
Yes.
It's never easy to
Yeah.
explain it, but if I use your analogy
Yeah.
and how you're moving about things, if you don't put a curtain
Yes.
to your window,
Yes.
you're by sense you're saying there's nothing private. You're inviting people to see.
Yeah.
And actually that's how the law looks at things. Yeah. If you make things public manifestly, the way you are, let's say you have a public persona in your social media,
Yes.
anyone can follow you.
Yes.
You don't have security settings.
Yeah.
So by sense, it's like you've waived your right. You don't want it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you've made the information public, and
Yeah.
therefore there's no privacy.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
it is on your own initiative.
Yes.
But if I've taken the initiative to put a window, then put a curtain.
Yes.
Yeah, there is the sense to show that my intention was
Yeah.
these things should be kept private.
Private.
So all that you're describing actually relates to the broad concept of privacy.
privacy.
But when I talk about data protection,
Yeah.
I'm talking about something different. For example, if I go to an event, if Capital FM decides they're hosting us for a big event,
Yes, yeah.
and suddenly they start taking pictures,
Yeah.
is it that when I'm there, that means automatically they're supposed to take my photograph?
My photograph.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So the fact that I've signed up for that event,
Yes.
it's not an automatic
That-
that my photograph should be taken,
taken.
isn't it?
Yes, yes.
That is how data protection looks at things, that I have the right for protection of my data. You should tell me
Yes.
before you decide to start taking my photograph.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I can say about the two concepts is that the main distinguishing factor is that
Yes.
data protection is dealing with information or something that can identify
You
an
as an
individual.
individual.
Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
So if it's your photograph, your
Yeah.
image, your likeness, or even just actual information like a bank application form
Yeah.
and things like those fall under data protection. But the whole idea still is the privacy one, that
Yes.
those things, that data needs to be safeguarded and
Yes.
kept private.
And kept private. Okay, so now let's get into the legislation around these two concepts. Could you give us an insight on the legislation that governs these two concepts, and especially with focus on the individual?
Okay, so it's different things in different parts of the world.
Okay.
So, I am biased.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Based on where
understandable.
I'm coming from.
Yes,
If I speak about what it is to a Kenyan today,
Okay.
if I look at how is an individual's privacy guaranteed in the
Yes.
law,
Yeah.
the first place I would look at is the Constitution.
Yes.
So Article 31 of the Kenyan Constitution, every person in Kenya
Yes.
has a right to privacy. And there are some facets of that right to privacy in the Constitution. You have a right not to be subjected to arbitrary searches,
Okay.
not to have your information unnecessarily disclosed.
So what you're saying is the security personnel cannot just stop me and search me.
And I like the way you've thought about that. Yeah.
Yes.
So the right to privacy is not absolute.
Oh.
In
okay.
the sense, yeah?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
has some, what do I call it, restrictions.
Okay.
Yeah, so even within the Constitution,
Yeah.
it is restricted, yeah? It is restricted. There are some delineations around how the right can apply. But generally,
Yes.
if they want to stop and search you, of course, they have the right to do that. But they, again, how those searches are done
Yes.
is also a matter of law. The Police Act will say
Yeah.
how exactly is a search supposed to be done. So if they don't do it as per the law,
Okay.
or the requirement in the statute,
Yes.
then of course you can invoke that even the way the search was done is unconstitutional, because it also was violating
Yes.
even the very legislature that allows it to happen. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, that is one way. Then also the Constitution talks about what we are talking about. You have a right not to have your family affairs. Your affairs about yourself and your
Yes, and your
family
family.
unnecessarily disclosed,
Okay.
and also not to have your communications infringed.
Okay.
But remember, I said the Constitution has restrictions.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you think about the government, can they spy
Yes.
on our
you.
communications and surveillance? Yeah. Again, this comes back to the restrictions that are there in the Constitution. If the constitutional restrictions permit
Yes.
then that could be a plausible case. But if they don't, then for sure there is a violation of privacy. So the first law, and we don't call our constitution an act.
Yes.
It's our primary law. If everything else falls, the constitution stands. And so it guarantees every person in Kenya a right to privacy. Now, in addition to that, we have what we call the Data Protection Act of 2019, which has been, creating some buzz in our country. And that's the primary one that actually protects informational privacy. It talks about how people, organizations, institutions who collect information from people should handle it. The good thing about that act is actually it recognizes the Constitution. It says it has been derived
from the Constitution,
from Article 31C and D of the Constitution. So for us in Kenya, we are very proud to say that for sure, for us, data privacy is a child of the right to privacy.
All right.
Which is in the Constitution. Then we have regulations that are supporting the Act. We have 3 sets of regulations. So if you're an institution, you want to know those sets of regulations because those sets are more addressed to you as an entity than they are to the individual person. So you want to know that you have registration regulations. So if you're a hospital, a school, a bank, whatever organization you are, if you handle anybody's information, you need to be registered with the Office of the Data Commissioner if you have met certain thresholds. Again, we have what we call general regulations. Those ones generally explain how the act will work. Tidbits which I think we will go into, like, for example, rights. How do rights work exactly? What should happen if there's a breach of somebody's data? What are the procedures to follow? So I kind of call the general regulations the procedures. How do you enforce those things that are stated in the Data Act? And then finally, you have the complaints handling and enforcement. If I have a complaint, if I don't like how an organization is handling my data, where do I go? Who should I report to? So that regulation actually talks about how you can go to the Office of the Data Commissioner, who is the regulator we have in Kenya, and make a complaint. What will happen when you file this complaint? What are the procedures? What should you expect? That will be outlined in the complaints and enforcement regulations. And then, interestingly, in addition to those, we have sector-specific regulations. For example, for you who's coming from the healthcare sector, you will have regulations, around the industry that talk about how long you should keep health data. Those will also be relevant to data protection. Banks also say how long after a customer has been inactive will they inactivate an account, and how long after that will they destroy the data. So those banking regulations would be relevant also when you're talking about data protection. So if you ask me a summary of the, what do you call it, of the laws.
Of the laws,
starts with the Constitution. Moves to the Data Protection Act, then also supplemented by those industry-specific or sector-specific
that's interesting.
laws.
All right, so maybe just to highlight for those who are watching or listening from other countries, so we have also laws that are specific to those countries. So we have laws in countries like Uganda, Rwanda. I think Tanzania have just enacted one, though not yet set up a regulator, and many other jurisdictions where we have these laws. The most common one is, of course, GDPR, which has been adopted by most African countries. So now we move on from the laws that govern, these principles that we've talked about, and the focus still on the individual.
Just before we move, I think it's good to mention that it's not just the law that achieves data protection. We also have things we call industry standards. Like, for example, American institutions are comply with this a lot, what we call SOC 2.
SOC 2, yes.
So the standard compliance rules for service organizations, those contain some things to do with data protection. We also have security frameworks. Like, and I know this better than you, and maybe you can mention a few of the security frameworks.
Okay, so we have things like HIPAA. At least HIPAA focuses on protecting health information. We have things like ISO 27001, which defines, management system around information security, which of course speaks into data protection, and many other industry standards around the same, which of course definitely complements the laws in the different jurisdictions. So let's move on to the rights of now the individual that we are talking about. What are their rights under the law? And, how can they exercise? So what are the rights they have? And as an individual, how do you exercise your rights?
First of all, it's shocking that most people don't even know they have rights. Okay. First, even the right to privacy.
Yes.
I'm sure many people don't know that there is actually a constitutional right to privacy.
Yeah.
And actually, for Africa, we are a peculiar region.
Okay.
Privacy is not really natural to us.
We are communal.
Yeah, we are communal.
Yes,
we like to be out there. We like to socialize.
Yes.
We like to take pictures generously and share. So the concept is becoming, yes, we are catching on, but more we are like,
yes.
You mean I won't see my children's photos on Parents' Day? Yeah. What do you mean you're not taking photos?
Yeah.
You get,
Yes.
So the right to privacy is evolving, I would say. It's catching on slowly here because of the nature of how we are.
Yes.
But if I talk about the actual rights to your data, that actually when you give an organization, when you go and give a security guard your ID, and you're told to write your name the way I was told to write when I came here in a book.
Yeah.
There are rights I have.
Okay.
Like one, I have the right to information. I actually have the right to ask that security guard, why are you asking for my ID? What do you need it for? And many people don't know that.
But how many are bold to actually exercise that right?
Yeah, there is a fear. Yeah. But information is power.
Yes, definitely.
If you know you have a right, now you'll be a little bit aware. And the next time you're being asked is, why? So there's a right to information. You need to know why someone is collecting your information and what they want to use it for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the second type of right is something very common, but probably we didn't know it's a right.
Yeah.
It's the right to access. It's what you do when you go to the bank and you ask for a statement. You're asking to access your historical transactions, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
It's what you do when you are treated and you ask for the treatment notes. Doctors don't give.
Yeah, they don't usually give. Yes, true. They don't usually give.
They believe it's their information, but really, who is the person you're treating?
It's me.
Yeah. So if I'm being treated by you, I need to have. I have the right to access whatever it is you wrote in that record about me. You cannot keep my ailment secret.
So let me paint a scenario. So you can, what you're saying is, I can go to a hospital that I was last in 5 years ago and demand for my treatment notes.
Yeah.
I have that right.
You have a right. Okay, if you were treated there, you have a right. Whether you will get the information is another question.
Another question. Okay.
But the right cannot be taken away from you.
Okay.
You have a right to access. So access is just about asking for information that relates to you. So you can ask for anything. In fact, in the European jurisdiction, people have taken this right very far, and they've taken on the big tech organizations because they make requests. Like I go to Facebook and I ask Facebook, give me all information you hold about me. And that will include all the times I've clicked on Facebook, all the profiles I've viewed, all the friends I've requested, all the ones who've denied me, and all those manner of things. So an organization has a lot of information about you. And so the right to access is the best right, actually, because it gives you a lot of knowledge about what exactly an information holds about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Then the third type of request is you can ask for rectification.
Okay.
Yeah. For example, you fill in a form. You join a school.
Yes.
You get an admission number.
Okay.
Then when the time for exams comes, the admission number that is recorded there is wrong.
Is wrong one. Yes.
Well, that's a way you can ask for rectification. You can say, hey, excuse me, this information you have about me is wrong. If I go to your industry if I look at my medical cover and then I see that the hospital has lumped costs there, things I didn't incur. Yeah, I can push back and ask for rectification. So it's a normal request. We make these requests in our day-to-day lives. Okay. But new peculiar ones that have come in the law now are things like erasure.
Okay.
The way you are asking, can I go and ask a bank, I was your customer 5 years ago, can you delete all my records?
Yes.
That's a right now. I can actually go out there and say, smart.
Yes. I was your employee.
I was your employee,
yes.
and I've not been there for 10 years.
Okay.
Delete my records. Or I don't use Smart anymore. I've not used it for 10 years. Yes. Delete my records. So that's a new one that's come up. There's also objection, which is now becoming a common one. Whenever you see people complaining about SMSs, getting these...
marketing
SMS,
yes.
promotion by Smart or discounts and these things. You can object. You can actually send stop to a certain number. That's an objection.
That's an objection
request. Or you can call them and say, I don't want to receive these messages anymore.
Let's talk about cases where these rights do not apply. So, for example, can I object to everything, even when the government wants to take my fingerprints? Can I say no?
Yeah.
So is that applicable?
No. So the right exists. You know what we want to emphasize is the right exists. Whether it will be given is now a matter of interpretation of the law. Is it an absolute right? Yeah. So some of the rights are not absolute. Yeah. For example, the absolute way right for objection is absolutely, if I ask you don't send me marketing messages, there is no defense.
Okay.
You have to say comply and not send me again.
Okay.
Yeah? But I don't have an absolute right to object to other things. So like, for example, like if the law says I have to get my fingerprints done, then the right to object will not apply.
Okay, makes sense.
So what I can say is this interpretation. You need to interpret when does your right apply. But for you as an individual, what's important to know is the right exists. So if the right exists is to explore maybe with a lawyer or somebody, does this right apply to this situation?
Oh, okay. Makes sense. So let's get to the practical, exercising of this right. I'll give an example. Someone decides to post my child's birthday and I want to object to that. Do I have a right?
Yeah. Who is the someone?
Okay.
In this scenario,
a relative who has come.
Yeah, a relative. Yes. So interestingly, the data protection law does not apply to personal and private affairs.
Okay, expand more on that. That's very interesting because I have a right, but it does not apply to personal.
It doesn't apply to information you're using for purely household purposes. So we come to a family get-together. For example, we come together and create a family WhatsApp group. And we share pictures on that WhatsApp group.
Okay.
That's not protected under the Data Protection Act. Those are what we call personal purposes. But now, the Data Protection Act usually applies where something is taking a commercial angle. For example, let me give you an example. Your house help. It's still within the context. We call them our house managers.
Yes,
to have the proper term. It's still within the context of private things. But she's not there for private things. She's paid. She's on a contract.
Yes.
So there's a commercial element to her being there.
Yeah.
So can you take her pictures and post them on social media, for instance?
She has joined my child's birthday party, so I'm posting.
But can you? Yeah. Okay. Now here, you become a data controller. You've taken a different angle because of it's no longer commercial. She's an employee.
Okay.
And she has a right to data protection. So for her, she can object to you as her employer. Yeah?
Okay.
You see that commercial, the commercial aspect came the moment you give her a contract. You pay her for her services. It's the same way you don't expect your company to be taking your pictures without your consent. So why wouldn't you extend the same? The same right applies to her. So you can object to your company.
Yes.
She or he can object to you as their employer.
Interesting. I hope that has synced in because I think the perception might be that this right applies to everything. All right. So let's go deep into, if someone wanted now to, go to an organization and exercise their rights. Let's begin with the right of rectification. And let's see how practical it is for me as an individual. How do I even contact Safaricom to tell them, edit my details? Yeah. Where do I start from as an individual?
And that's why we should be grateful that we now have a law. Because initially you wouldn't do that. Nobody will even ever respond to you.
Yes.
They'll be like, this is a time waster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now the law is actually telling Safaricom, not you as the individual. Safaricom needs to make it easy for me to contact them with a request about my information, whatever request it is.
Yes.
They need to have a procedure in place. Whether it's an email, they tell me write to us.
Okay.
Whether it's the phone call us. They need to have a way for me. It shouldn't be me going to getting such a hard time to find you. You should be easily findable.
Okay.
And when I find you, you should answer my questions. You should not leave me hanging.
Leave me hanging.
So what the law has done to ensure people are not left hanging, it has made these requests very time bound. For example, if you make a rectification or access request, I think it's access request, it's 7 days.
7 working days.
It's not 7 working days. It's 7 days.
7 days. So
From
it doesn't
the
matter
day
if you
I make
start
the
from
request,
Saturday.
exactly.
They'll count 7 days.
They'll count 7 days. I should have responded and I should have given the feedback of how or what kind of information I hold about you. Yeah. So what is being tested is not so much me. How, in fact, the more difficult it is for me to make a request to you, the worse it is for you as the corporate organization.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have not made my life easier, so I can complain. I can go to the data commissioner. I can complain actually that you're not complying with the law because the law has said you need to make it easy for me to make my complaint or request.
Oh, all right. That's a new one. I had not even understood it that way. So the people who work for organizations that are listening to this, make it as easy as possible for someone to be able to reach out to the people who are concerned with responding to these requests. So there's some myths that have been circulating around when it comes to the rights of an individual has. So there has been a right to portability. Is that even there? Yeah. So can I wake up and move from, let's say, bank A to bank B and say, bank A, give bank B my data? And how practical is that?
Yeah. So that one is also one of the peculiar and newer type of rights.
Okay.
It is there in Kenya.
Okay.
It is there in GDPR.
Yes.
And in many other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's exactly what it says. That I have the right to ask that my information be moved to another entity in a structured manner.
Okay.
But that one again is not an absolute right.
Explain
Yeah.
more.
When I say it's not absolute, there are certain restrictions around when the portability request is not made possible or is not possible. And I think the important thing to note here is not really what are those scenarios, but when you make this request, is the organizations that you make them to should be ready to comply. So for them, the bigger issue is how will they make your data? How will they port your data, move your data from you
to the next organization?
Okay. Is it going to be a flash disk? Is it going to be
an email?
A link?
Okay.
An email and a link?
Yes.
Is it going to be a portal? So there's a lot of innovation around the IT space, around how some of these requests are going to be honored. Is it practical? Because it's in the law, it means to me, it's practical.
Yes.
You have to find a way to be able to achieve it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I was to answer you is, yes, the law says it's there. It is for what the law doesn't do is prescribe how to achieve. It gives you the flexibility as the organization
to decide.
Okay. What's the best way to achieve what the law is requiring of me. So maybe I can ask you the same question as an IT guy. How do you think you can achieve it?
Okay, so of course there are several, mechanisms of having that portability happen. And in fact, on the smart platform, we're able to achieve that. So when you change insurers, we're able to move you from one insurer to another without you having to even give your KYC again. And how we've been able to achieve that is, having that embedded within our system. So our systems, have privacy built into them from the beginning. But also for other organizations, there are several things that you can use, to achieve that. An email of the information. One of the other rights that is usually demanded is the right to be forgotten, which you talked about erasure. And let us look at a scenario. Let's bring it back home. I have an account with the big tech firms. So I have an account with Facebook. I have an account with Google. Are these guys also bound by the laws that govern data privacy in Kenya?
Yeah.
Or are they too big for that?
Yeah.
Can I walk up to Google and say, I don't no longer want you to have my data? Yeah. What are the dynamics of that for such big organizations? And if I, as an individual, want to exercise that right?
Thank you for bringing that up, actually. So we have a very interesting way in which the law is structured.
Okay.
So this law applies to, organizations that are based in Kenya. They have a head office, they're incorporated. Yeah,
Yes.
you know where they are and you can go to them.
Yeah.
So that's one type. But it also applies to companies who have no physical presence here, but who collect information from people here.
Okay.
So that maybe Google might not qualify because Google has an office.
Yeah.
But I, to my mind, and maybe they do, so you'll forgive me if you don't.
It's understandable.
Something like Alibaba may not have a physical office here.
Yeah.
But for me to order something on Alibaba, I'd need
Yes.
to part with my data.
Definitely.
For that reason, Alibaba has to comply with the law here in Kenya.
Okay.
That means, like any other Kenyan organization or organization based here, they need to provide a way for me to make a request.
Okay.
Whether it's an erasure, access, whatever request I make, they need to provide a way in the same way that all other organizations based here need to do the same. So to answer you, whether or not you're here, you have a physical presence, as long as you collect data of people based here, you have to comply with the Kenyan law.
Okay. Are you able to give us some of the examples from your practice where you've seen individuals actually exercise their rights, to the commission, and what has transpired, especially in terms of the process that person has to follow, and have there been consequences in the first place?
Yeah. I think the biggest chunk of claims that have gone to the data commissioner are from digital lenders, users of digital lending platforms.
Okay.
Yeah. And the nature of complaints that people have had is, I took a loan from this organization, and then now they are calling my cousin and my grandmother and all this, and I didn't give that information to them. How did they get that kind of information? And the route I've seen in the beginning days when people didn't understand there's now a regulator, they would contact us to try and help them.
Okay.
Try and help them to, because they say there's my mental anguish and all manner of things. When you listen, the stories are quite sad, actually. Okay. But now the data commissioner has made that process very easy.
Yes.
All you need to do is go to their website. I think it's odpc.go.ke.
Yes.
And they actually have a template which you can fill for filing a complaint.
Yes.
So all you need to say is the name of the organization that you're complaining against, your name, your contacts, the nature, the details of the complaint, and all the evidences you have.
Yes.
And then you lodge it with them, and then they contact you.
Yes.
Once they have looked at your complaint and they have investigated it, they call for documents from both of you.
Yes.
Both you as the complainant and the organization that you have complained about.
Yeah.
Then they investigate and they make a determination and a ruling. Most of the determinations have been to the organizations, where they are being asked to put certain things in place to comply Or if the organization is ignoring, which is one of the things I want to stress, don't ignore.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Don't ignore.
Yeah,
If you are summoned by the regulator, don't ignore.
Yeah.
Those that have been ignoring actually are the ones that have faced the fines. Yeah, the regulator has taken that approach. You know, self-report.
Yes.
If you have a breach, for example,
respond
and comply with investigations, or do I call it comply or
participate?
Yes. Get involved.
Yeah.
In the investigations, and then when the orders are issued, comply with whatever orders are issued. So for the individual, the process is easy.
Yes.
Yeah. You can either go directly to the organization, which is best actually, best to start your complaint
with the organization.
You have an issue with.
Yeah.
And then if it's not working, escalate it to the data commissioner and say, look, I had this issue and these people are not responding. Then you both will be summoned and you can do that. But also the data commissioner is coming up with alternative dispute resolutions.
Okay.
They are asking people to settle things privately before having to involve them.
Yeah.
If you can get a mediator or an alternative dispute resolver before you can go to the formal channels. All those are channels available to an individual. So I have seen the scenario of people complaining about loans, but I've also seen everyday people. Somebody complained about being a passenger on a bus, and when they alighted, they were being called by people they didn't know. Somebody complained about not getting an M-Pesa statement on time.
Okay.
So it's not just that, it's any customer of any organization can complain. But I've also seen employees and job applicants complaining.
We are getting to that because it's a whole topic of its own.
Yes.
But for our audiences that are not resident in Kenya, the important thing is get to know who is the regulator in your country, and then get to know what methods have they put in place for you to be able to lodge your complaint, and what are some of the things that they have done. We'll be giving examples where applicable, those that we know of, but it will be important to know your in-country regulator so that they're able to assist you with whatever complaint that you have. Now let's go into the relationship of employer-employee. That's quite a tricky one because this is where I'm getting my bread and butter. It is a bit tricky for me to exercise my rights. Because one, I might be judged. Two, I might face consequences for those. Much as they might not be direct, so I might not be told, we're doing this because you did this. How does an individual or an employee navigate that relationship without losing their bread and butter?
Thank you for asking that, because I haven't seen people who are still in active employment going. What I have seen, the nature of complaints from employees have been of people who are either going through a termination process. So they are already suspended.
Yes.
And they are trying to find another way.
The milk has already spilled.
Yeah, they are looking for an angle.
Okay.
And actually, it's perfectly legal to use your rights to try and get more information about the circumstances surrounding your termination. For example, many organizations don't part with investigation reports.
Yes.
Yeah. So they will probably just tell you the investigation report has revealed you did 1, 2, 3, and they'll probably not give you. So people can use things like access requests to try and see. And again, I'm saying it's not an absolute right. Remember, that's why we are saying these rights. People may think, now I have access rights. I can just go and ask and I'll be given. And even when you ask and it's said that you need to be given the investigation report, do you know you'll only be given what is your personal data in that report? So that maybe this report has a whole page, but your name is only mentioned in one place. There's nothing else. It's maybe Joshua's opinions are the rest. All that will be blacked out. I'll only see my name.
Your name.
Because it's the personal data that relates to me.
Okay.
So even how these requests are being responded to, don't feel like it is also an avenue to go and bully your employer into giving you information. Yeah. But I have seen it being used as a route for employees to try and get more information, especially where they don't have a lot to help defend themselves or even start. I've also seen job applicants.
Yes, I was getting there.
Yeah.
For example, I've been shortlisted, and during the whole process, I gave my information, a lot of it at that. And, let's say we have 3 candidates left, and they've taken one, I'm not been taken. Do I have a right to say, give me the notes about my interview that you did, and then also delete the information that I submitted? Because by the time you're getting to the stage where you 3 people who have been shortlisted out of 100, there is a lot of information that has been asked for. So in that situation, can I tell my prospective employer that, you know what, share with me the interview notes that you had during the interview?
Yes.
Yeah,
you can. I remember again, it's access right. I told you the right exists.
Okay.
No one will stop you from asking anything.
Yeah.
Ask.
Yeah.
The question is how the responses will come. And the second thing is you have a right to ask and you have a right to a response. Whether the response is yes or no, it's a
this
right.
is a totally different story.
So
and there is a time limitation within which a response should come.
There is a response timeline.
Okay.
And if you're not satisfied, there is a appeal process.
Okay, take us through that.
So if you're not satisfied, you can go and complain to the data commissioner.
Okay.
If you're not satisfied, you can file an appeal to the High Court.
But that costs money.
That costs money.
I don't have the money. I'm seeking for a job. I don't even have the money.
Yeah.
So I'm listening. How do I start the appeal process?
It's good to always know it's an available avenue.
Oh, okay.
It's an available avenue. And what the court process will do is eventually you can be compensated depending on the nature of your claim. If it has merit, you can be compensated by the courts for the damage that has been caused. So there's all multiple avenues. Yeah.
We have seen cases still on the employer-employee relationship. We have seen cases where my former employer decides to publish me in the papers that Joshua is no longer an employee of XYZ. Work with him on your own terms. He's not representing the organization.
Yeah.
So tell us, as an individual who has been put in the papers, what are my rights?
You have a right. First of all, you have a right to object.
Okay.
You have a right to object.
How do I get started with the objection? It's already in the papers.
Yeah, you get started by writing a demand.
Okay.
To the organization. You need to get an explanation around it. And then, one of the things that employers have to do is the moment you are onboarded from your first day, they need to tell you how they are going to use your information. They give you a privacy notice as an employee.
That you have to sign.
No, you can.
Must I sign it?
You mustn't sign it. It's not a must. It's an informational tool. It tells you how the organization will use employee information. If they have not disclosed there that one of the things they can do is use my photograph in the newspaper, then it's a violation of privacy. Secondly, that's one way. Secondly, what lawful basis do they have to publish my photo?
Yeah.
What are they trying to achieve? Because they have to justify where they have come up, what lawful reason they have to publish my photo in the newspaper. So they can argue it's in public interest. That maybe the public interest demands that people should know working with you is a hazard.
Oh.
So it's a way you can argue. You can also say it's in my interest, my legitimate business interest. But then any argument you put forward as an organization, be prepared to defend it.
So the organization should have done its work.
You can't just go out and put that. You have to check, did I inform these people that this is one of the ways I would use your data? Secondly, do I even have a lawful reason or a lawful basis for putting this information? And if I do have a lawful basis, can I justify it?
Yes.
If you can't, if your answers are moving more towards no and no, don't do it.
So from my own understanding as an individual, as an employee, what are some of those things I need to avoid that will give an organization legal basis to put my photo in the papers, so that as I go about my duties.
Do you know even the organizations, when they are doing it, they never even say what it is you did.
Yes.
They just say don't work with this person. So for me, I can challenge them.
Okay.
Yeah? Because first of all, I need information. Why? You never informed me before you put up that information up there. So that's already a violation of my right to information, isn't it?
Yes,
then secondly, they need to tell me the lawful reason. They need to justify to me where did they get, what lawful reason are they using? Yeah? Because all that forms for me a basis for a legal claim. Yeah?
Okay.
Coming from that. But what you need to do to avoid being put in the newspapers, It depends.
It depends on
I
the
don't know where
organization.
you're being put in the newspapers. It depends on the organization.
Okay.
What are they trying to
Yes.
achieve?
Yeah.
Some of them are just being malicious, but
Yes.
some of them are trying to say you're a thief, but they don't want to say
They don't
you're
want to
a
say
thief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's still sticking to the individual bit, because as individuals we represent organizations. We act on and for the organization. So at what point, according to the law, will they differentiate between an action done by me as an employee of the organization and an action that, the organization should be held accountable? Where does the law, sort of draw the line that, yes, you're an employee, like I'm Joshua, I'm an employee of Smart Applications, but you are the one responsible, not the organization, much as you're acting on behalf of the organization. And then in what circumstances will it appear that Smart is unresponsible and not the individual representing the organization?
Okay, so the way it works is multifaceted. Is how I can say it. Yeah? So between Smart and the government,
Okay.
there is an obligation coming from the law
Okay.
to process people's information in a responsible way. But who is Smart? Is Smart a box
No.
or a table?
It's a combination of individuals.
Smart is individuals.
Yes. Yeah.
Smart achieves the law
Yes.
through the individuals
Individuals.
it employs.
Employees, yeah.
Yeah. Now, how Smart will hold an individual responsible for a certain action is through its policies.
Okay.
You need to define the policy around data protection in your organization. What do you expect of me as an employee?
As an employee.
Then you need to educate me. Don't just give me a policy
Yes.
and you don't educate
Educate me,
me
yeah.
and then expect me to comply. So you come up with a policy, you educate me, and then you give me the copy of the policy.
Yes.
And then you let me now, do what you've said. And if I don't do it, you
Yeah.
have somewhere to fall back. You come back through your processes. This is the policy.
Yes.
You didn't follow the
Didn't follow the
policy,
policy.
then I can hold you accountable.
Okay.
But if you have no policy, you have no rules,
Yes.
how can you say what I've done is wrong?
Okay, it makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. But in the eyes of the regulator,
But in the regulator,
yeah,
the regulator knows Smart.
does not know the individual.
They don't know the
employee by Smart.
individuals.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So the person that will be held responsible eventually is Smart.
Smart. Okay, so let's talk about the right. I think this word is thrown around a lot: consent, and it has become, a buzzword of sorts when it comes to matters privacy and protection. Under what circumstances does someone need to seek your consent? And I want to speak into the part where you said the law does not cover dealings with individuals. Yeah. So, in what context can we say consent is gotten from an individual, and in what context can I withdraw the consent?
Yeah.
Can I reach midway and say, you know what, I've changed my mind, now I no longer want to consent?
Yeah. So again, I want us to remember this law, it applies to the organizations that collect and use your data.
Not individuals.
Not individuals, not your
Okay.
relative.
Okay.
Don't go and tell
Okay.
your mom she needs your consent.
So someone doesn't need consent to post my photo.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it's your buddy, if it's a random person who
Yeah.
has collected, that is different.
Oh,
because you
okay.
see, where did they get it?
I was in the public. I was moving on the street.
Yeah.
They were doing a video shoot.
No, those
and I
ones
appeared.
will be held accountable.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
those will be held accountable.
yeah.
Remember again, even those ones who are doing video shoots, most of them they do for a commercial gain.
Yes.
They will either put it in their YouTube, they'll get followers and they'll be paid,
Okay. Yeah.
or they will put it on their social media pages and they're paid. So it's never for free. They have a commercial angle there. They're
So as
looking
long as
for
there's
money.
a commercial angle to it,
The law will apply.
The law will apply.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I forget your question.
The question was about consent.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
At what point do I give consent?
Exactly. So if somebody wants to use your information for marketing, promoting their brand, their image on their media, social media, website, Twitter handles, their SMS marketing, email
Yes.
marketing,
Yeah.
all that requires consent.
Okay.
That is non-negotiable. You must seek my consent.
Yes.
However, to get information from employees on the first day they join the organization, you don't use consent.
Okay.
The reason why is, first of all, what you said. Employee, employer, who has
Yes.
higher bargaining power?
Of course, employer.
So,
Yeah.
so if you tell an employee, give me information, no, they'll give you out of fear.
Yes.
Because if they don't give you,
Yeah,
lose
they'll not
that.
get. They'll miss the
They'll
opportunity.
lose their
True.
job. So
True.
for those kind of informations, we give them pursuant to contract. The contract requires that you give me, and also the law. The employment laws require that I pick certain information from employees. So I don't really need your consent for everything.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a misconception that we need to be asked for consent for
Yeah,
everything.
for everything.
No. It's in some instances, some types of things require consent. Yeah, and the most common one we have is marketing. It's not the only one,
Okay.
but it's the most common. If it's my photo, consent. If it's my video,
Yes.
consent. Yeah.
Right, so we've come to the close of our second episode, and the key three takeouts are what is data privacy, as I had already explained, what is data protection, and the laws that govern privacy and protection within the jurisdictions that you may be listening or watching us from. Thank you for being part of this episode. I'll see you in the next.
Global iTech Podcast. Global iTech Podcast.